Batman The Long Halloween Part 2 is finally out, but does it live up to the hype? Let's discuss. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're doing well. In this video we are going to be reviewing Batman The Long Halloween Part 2. So it's been a few weeks since the first part and now the second part has been released, and both parts are based on the very popular comic book series of the same name. Now I know the comic book is very beloved, but unfortunately I just feel like the second part and somewhat the first part as well just aren't as good as I wanted them to be. I mean, there are some interesting moments. So for example, the rise of Two-Face is pretty great. However, the murder mystery aspects and the criminal warring families are good, but just not good enough. And I just wanted this movie to be so much better. I wanted it to be one of the most iconic and one of the most brilliant Batman movies out there, but unfortunately it isn't, and I'm going to be breaking it all down for you in this movie review. So the storyline of the second installment picks up exactly from the end of the first part, with Poison Ivy now controlling Bruce Wayne and getting him to send money to the Falcone families. Batman, Harvey Dent and Commissioner Gordon are trying to work out who the holiday killer is, and the warring families of the Falcones and the Moreaus is still going on. Now from a positive point of view, even though it definitely did lose its steam about a third of the way into the second installment of The Long Halloween, guessing who the holiday killer was is really interesting, and also seeing the transition of Batman's villains going from mob-based gangsters to hooded criminals was really interesting as well, and also seeing the early years of Batman is always brilliant as well. Now from a negative point of view, this movie feels really slow and drawn out, and certain moments as well feel really unfinished as well. Like I said before as well, it definitely loses its excitement about a third of the way into this movie. I mean, there are some peaks here and there, but ultimately it just could have been so much more exciting and a lot more adrenaline fueled. And so all in all, from a storyline point of view, whilst it is watchable, I just definitely feel like they could have made it so much better. So from a cast and characters point of view, The Long Halloween actually boasts a brilliant cast, and they all really do rise up to the challenge really well. So let's go through them one by one. So of course, first up we have Jensen Ackles, who is playing the Bruce Wayne character and Batman, and actually he does a really good job in terms of playing the Cape Crusader. He's definitely at Kevin Conroy's level, but plays a younger version of the character, so totally nails the brief and does a really good job. And I think he's a lot better in the second part than he was in the first one. You never would have thought that he hadn't played Batman before, which is really great. Next up we have Naya Rivera playing the Selina Kyle and the Catwoman character, and actually she saves the day on quite a few number of occasions in this movie, which I thought is really interesting. And she also has somewhat of a connection to the warring families as well. In the comic book, she's very actively dating the Bruce Wayne character, which you don't really see in either of the two installments, but you know that it's underlying happening as it happens in the comic book series. Next up we have Josh Duhamel playing Harvey Dent and Two-Face. Obviously this is a bit of a different origin storyline for this character, and I feel like Josh Duhamel definitely does a really good job in terms of playing the innocent side of Harvey Dent, as well as also playing the tragic, darker side of the Two-Face character. So I feel like he does a really good job in terms of playing both of the aspects of this dual-based character. Next up we have Billy Burke, who's playing Commissioner Gordon. He doesn't really do that much in this movie. I definitely feel like he did a lot more in the first installment, but you know, for what he does do, Billy Burke does a really good job in terms of bringing the Commissioner Gordon character to life. Now we have a load of villains in this movie, which is really cool. So I love the fact that we had Scarecrow, we had his Fear Toxin in this movie, which was really cool. We also had the Mad Hatter in this film as well, and you can really see how deadly and crazy this character is, which is really cool. The Joker is in this movie as well, but he definitely doesn't have as much of a big part as he did in the first installment. I feel like he's only got 1 or 2 lines in this movie, which is fine because it's not really his narrative in the storyline, but it's really cool to see him. Similarly with Penguin, I feel like the Penguin doesn't really have any lines at all in this movie, but you know, he is great there to see him from a rogue gallery point of view. Calendar Man is here, but he always gets undermined by all of the other villains, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Contrastingly, we have Poison Ivy in this movie, and she is such a formidable foe in this film. She is almost able to wipe out so many different characters and has a deadly ability where she's able to totally control the person that she is wrapping her vines around. So I feel like they definitely showed how much of a badass this character is. And we also see some connections with the Wayne family and the mob boss criminals in this film, which is really interesting as it really examines the Wayne family's background, and maybe all of their fortunes are from dirty money gathered from criminal behavior. So I think it's really interesting how they really examine the Wayne family background. But you know, all in all, whilst the storyline wasn't that impressive, I feel like the cast and characters are actually really, really good. So the visuals in Batman The Long Halloween Part 2 are decent. You know, this film definitely is watchable. I've just seen much better visuals within the DC animated universe of characters, especially even other Batman films. And like I said before, certain moments do feel a little bit unfinished as well. But you know, that being said, it does capture the darkness and the corruptness of Gotham City and the murder mystery aspects. Whilst they do wane a little bit, they are really, really cool as well. And like I mentioned before as well, seeing all of the massive rogue gallery in this film was really, really cool, and seeing how it transitions from mob bosses to the brilliant rogue gallery of characters dressed up for Halloween, I think is depicted really, really well. So from a visuals point of view, whilst it could have been a lot better, I feel like it does work for this movie as well. So in terms of comparison, they actually changed the final act of this movie quite considerably to the comic book series. I mean, all of the revelations in the comic books are very, very different to what happens in the movie, which I think is fine. I mean, it's not going to be an exact adaptation. They are going to change a couple of things around here and there, and I think it works for the narrative that they are trying to tell. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you are hoping to see an exact replica of the comic book series coming to life on the movie, then you know, the ending of this movie may well disappoint you a little bit. But you know, like I said, it does still work for the particular narrative that they are trying to say. In terms of comparing the two parts, I think they are pretty much even and they are on the same level. However, I don't think that this movie is as good as other Batman movies. So for example, I don't think it's as good as The Killing Joke, Year One, Mask of the Phantasm, Under the Red Hood, or The Dark Knight Returns either. I feel like all of those movies are so much stronger within the Batman portfolio. So overall, with Batman The Long Halloween Part 2, I would say if you are a massive fan of the comic book series, definitely watch both of these installments, as you will be seeing the comic book coming to life, although it is a little bit different. In the final act of this movie, I think it's definitely worth watching, especially also if you are a DC fan, if you are a Justice League fan, and if you are a Batman fan. I was just a little bit disappointed and a little bit underwhelmed by this movie, as I was just hoping and expecting Batman The Long Halloween Part 2 to be so much better than it was. But you know, for all of the reasons that I've said in this review, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. If you want to hear what I had to say about the first installment, then definitely check out the link in the description box below. But now I'd love to hear from you. What were your thoughts on Batman The Long Halloween Part 2? Please let me know in the comments section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.